It begins softly, almost unnoticed, the way most truths do. A quiet suggestion that the world we move through, the one we trust with such certainty, may only be the outermost skin of something far deeper. When people imagine the universe, they think of stars scattered across a dark canvas, drifting in silence, behaving according to the tidy rules they learned in school. But that picture is only the first curtain. Behind it, there are motions and intentions we feel without understanding, forces so constant and subtle that they vanish into the background of daily life. Yet they are there, shaping everything, if you sit with the night long enough. Letting the noise of daylight fade, you can almost sense those forces, not as equations or theories, but as a kind of quiet pressure guiding every dust grain, every drifting world, every wandering atom. The universe moves with a patience that makes its intentions hard to notice. But the longer you watch, the more its patterns begin to speak. Galaxies swirl as though responding to a rhythm older than light. Stars ignite with uncanny precision. Even the emptiness, the vast black in-between hums with a purpose we have not yet named. Most people accept the simple explanations. Gravity pulls, particles collide, space expands. Everything behaves because the rules say so. And yet, beneath that comfort, a stubborn question remains. Why these rules? Why this balance? Why this elegant consistency stretching across billions of years? It almost feels as though the universe is performing a play whose script we were never fully shown. We glimpse scenes, but not the author, movements, but not the intent. For generations, thinkers have tried to peer behind that curtain, some through science, others through myth, others still through quiet intuition. And while their languages differed, the feeling they described was strangely similar, that the visible world is only the surface of a deeper architecture. A structure made not of stone or metal, but of relationships and hidden currents. A framework so complete that everything, from a drifting comet to the pulse of your own heart, moves in harmony with it. Perhaps the forces we were taught are not wrong, only incomplete. Shadows cast by something deeper, something we have sensed for centuries but never named with confidence. The real question is not whether such an architecture exists, but why it remains so well hidden, and why, when we brush against its edges, it feels familiar. As this journey begins, we step quietly into that hidden layer. The goal is not to solve the universe, but to notice the places where the familiar cracks open, revealing hints of the extraordinary. Because once you start to see those cracks, you start to wonder how long they've been there and how many others we've overlooked, and so we sink deeper, toward the first people who tried to understand the sky, long before our modern definitions existed, long before telescopes, satellites, or equations. Humanity's earliest observers stood beneath the same sky we see tonight, trying to make sense of its endless motion. They had none of our tools, none of our language for matter or forces. All they had were their eyes, their fears, and their wonder. Yet somehow, with nothing but those three things, they sensed that the sky was not merely decoration. It was alive with rules, patterns, intent. Imagine those first sky watchers in the stillness of ancient nights, staring upward from desert sands, mountain plateaus, or jungle clearings. The stars drifted slowly, predictably, following invisible paths that returned night after night. The moon swelled and thinned with a rhythm that seemed too regular to be chance. Even the rising and setting of the sun felt less like a routine and more like a promise. Something was guiding everything, something quiet but unwavering, with no scientific framework to lean on. Early civilizations reached for stories to describe the order they sensed. They imagined gods pulling the heavens into motion, spirits carrying the sun across the sky, serpents shaping the stars into swirling patterns. But beneath those stories was an instinct shared across continents, that the universe followed a hidden structure. Different cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, somehow crafted myths that echoed one another, not because they shared ideas, but because they shared the same sky. The Egyptians saw the heavens as a grand boat sailing through cosmic waters. The Babylonians charted the sky with astonishing accuracy, believing each planet carried meaning. Far across the world, the Maya watched Venus with obsessive precision, convinced its path revealed secrets about life and death. Despite their differences, they all sensed a deeper order, and they tried through temples, symbols, and calendars to capture pieces of it. Those early efforts were not primitive attempts to explain the cosmos. They were expressions of a feeling we still carry, that the universe is more organized than it appears, and that the visible motions in the heavens are clues to something greater. Even today, with all our instruments, we continue to ask the same questions they once whispered into the night. What governs the sky? Why does it move with such certainty? What lies beneath the patterns that never fail? Perhaps the most striking part is the consistency. Across eras, across cultures, people described the heavens not as chaos, but as a kind of language, a code written in stars. And while the meanings varied, the intuition remained strangely similar. The sky was telling a story. As we move forward, we follow those early footsteps, not to replicate their beliefs, but to trace the patterns they recognized. Patterns that, despite our advancements, still linger above us, waiting to be understood more deeply. And those patterns, ancient and persistent, guide us toward the next question. What truths did these civilizations glimpse that we may have forgotten? Across the world, in places that never knew one another existed, ancient civilizations sketched the universe with the same quiet symbols, spirals carved into stone, circles aligned with the rising sun, pathways marked by stars. These weren't decorations. They were reflections of something humanity sensed long before it could measure. A hidden structure woven through everything, a structure older than memory itself. When we trace the ruins of distant cultures, a strange familiarity emerges. Egyptian temples align with celestial events as though designed to echo the heavens. Mesopotamian tablets show intricate motions of the planets, recorded with impossible precision. In India, ancient texts describe cycles of time so vast they make our calendars feel fragile. And in the Americas, monuments rise toward specific stars, capturing moments when the sky speaks its rarest language. Different places, different beliefs, yet the patterns repeat. Why? Perhaps they were responding to the same silent architecture shaping the cosmos. Long before scientific theories, people recognized recurring shapes in nature: circles, spirals, triangles mirrored in the sky. They saw storms twisting in spirals, shells curling with mathematical grace, galaxies forming arms that swirl like ancient carvings. Even today, we name these connections coincidence, but ancient people saw meaning in them. They believed the universe followed patterns for a reason. Modern physics gives new names to these structures: gravity, fields, motion, but the underlying intuition remains unchanged. Forces we cannot see pulling on bodies we cannot touch. Relationships binding objects across vast distances. Alignments appearing where none should exist. Ancient myths may have dressed these dynamics in poetic language, but the core idea was the same. The universe was not random. It was guided as we sift through old stories. Certain symbols return again and again. The cosmic tree connecting realms. The serpent representing cycles and renewal. The wheel of creation turning endlessly. These are not just myths. They are metaphors for forces that shape reality. Their persistence across cultures suggests they weren't merely invented, they were observed, sensed, or remembered. Could it be that ancient civilizations, without our technology, saw the universe with a clarity we've lost? Not in detail, but in essence. They watched the sky long enough to recognize its patterns. They listened to the quiet rhythms of nature until meaning emerged. They built their lives around cycles so precise they anticipated celestial events. Centuries ahead, some knowledge may have faded, some may have been dismissed or buried, but the echoes remain in stone, in scripture, in geometry. These echoes pull us toward a realization our ancestors tried to express, that beneath the visible world lies a deeper structure, subtle, consistent, and profound. As we move into the next chapter, we begin to compare these ancient intuitions with the forces described by modern science, and we may find that, despite the centuries separating them, they are not as different as we once believed. Gravity is often taught as something simple, a downward pull that keeps our feet on the ground. Yet the truth is far softer and far stranger. It behaves less like a hand tugging us and more like a gentle curve guiding everything along paths it never questions. Imagine space not as emptiness, but as fabric, pliable and patient, dipping beneath every object and inviting it to move in ways that feel natural yet unseen. When a leaf drifts toward the earth, it is not being forced down. It is following the shape of the world beneath it, sliding along a path carved long before the leaf existed. The same quiet shaping guides planets in their orbits, stars in their clusters, and galaxies in their long, spiraling journeys across the dark. What makes gravity so mysterious is how weak it is compared to every other influence in existence. It can hold planets in orbit and draw stars together, yet a small magnet in your hand can overpower it. That imbalance hints at something unfinished in our understanding, a suggestion that gravity is not a complete story, but an echo of something deeper. Even the way it stretches across unimaginable distances feels unusual, connecting objects that never meet, binding them through shapes they cannot escape. As cosmic structures form and collapse, gravity moves with a kind of intention, herding galaxies into clusters and sculpting the web of the universe itself. It is patient, persistent, and strangely elegant. Nothing rushes under its guidance. Everything flows, as though gravity were offering quiet instructions. And even though science describes it as curvature, that explanation feels more poetic than final. What bends the fabric? What shapes the rule? Why should matter tell space how to curve at all? We live inside gravity's story without understanding its author. Every breath, every thought, every drifting moment is shaped by this unseen influence. Yet we rarely question it. Perhaps that is the mark of its true power. It hides by feeling ordinary. And when something feels ordinary for too long, we stop noticing how extraordinary it truly is. Though we treat gravity as familiar, the deeper we look, the less certain it becomes. Observations of distant galaxies reveal motions that do not match our expectations, as if gravity behaves differently on the grandest scales. Some regions move too quickly, others too slowly, creating puzzles that linger without resolution. These oddities whisper that another layer may exist beneath the force we think we know. Something shaping gravity the way gravity shapes space. Even in our daily lives, gravity's presence feels almost intimate. It greets us each morning, holds us close to the world, and follows us through every quiet step. Yet it remains invisible, offering no hint of its origin. It does not roar or spark or flash. It simply is, a constant companion with motives we seldom question. And that silence invites curiosity. What story would gravity tell if we could hear it? As this chapter continues, another hidden influence emerges, one that hums around us constantly, weaving light and matter into the world we know. Gravity is often taught as something simple, a downward pull that keeps our feet on the ground. Yet the truth is far softer and far stranger. It behaves less like a hand tugging us, and more like a gentle curve guiding everything along paths it never questions. Imagine space not as emptiness but as fabric, pliable and patient, dipping beneath every object and inviting it to move in ways that feel natural yet unseen. When a leaf drifts toward the earth, it is not being forced down. It is following the shape of the world beneath it, sliding along a path carved long before the leaf existed. The same quiet shaping guides planets in their orbits, stars in their clusters, and galaxies in their long, spiraling journeys across the dark. What makes gravity so mysterious is how weak it is compared to every other influence in existence. It can hold planets in orbit and draw stars together, yet a small magnet in your hand can overpower it. That imbalance hints at something unfinished in our understanding, a suggestion that gravity is not a complete story but an echo of something deeper. Even the way it stretches across unimaginable distances feels unusual, connecting objects that never meet, binding them through shapes they cannot escape. As cosmic structures form and collapse, gravity moves with a kind of intention, herding galaxies into clusters and sculpting the web of the universe itself. It is patient, persistent, and strangely elegant. Nothing rushes under its guidance. Everything flows, as though gravity were offering quiet instructions. And even though science describes it as curvature, that explanation feels more poetic than final. What bends the fabric? What shapes the rule? Why should matter tell space how to curve at all? We live inside gravity's story without understanding its author. Every breath, every thought, every drifting moment is shaped by this unseen influence, yet we rarely question it. Perhaps that is the mark of its true power. It hides by feeling ordinary, and when something feels ordinary for too long, we stop noticing how extraordinary it truly is. Though we treat gravity as familiar, the deeper we look, the less certain it becomes. Observations of distant galaxies reveal motions that do not match our expectations, as if gravity behaves differently on the grandest scales. Some regions move too quickly, others too slowly, creating puzzles that linger without resolution. These oddities whisper that another layer may exist beneath the force we think we know. Something shaping gravity the way gravity shapes space, even in our daily lives. Gravity's presence feels almost intimate. It greets us each morning, holds us close to the world, and follows us through every quiet step. Yet it remains invisible, offering no hint of its origin. It does not roar or spark or flash. It simply is, a constant companion with motives we seldom question. And that silence invites curiosity. What story would gravity tell if we could hear it? As this chapter continues, another hidden influence emerges, one that hums around us constantly, weaving light and matter into the world we know. Electromagnetism surrounds us in ways we rarely stop to consider, flowing through the world like a quiet river of influence. It shapes every color we see, every spark that moves through our nerves, every flicker from a distant star. Yet because it hides behind familiarity, its presence feels less like a force and more like a constant whisper woven into the fabric of experience. Imagine the space around you filled with threads of energy, pulsing gently, forming patterns too subtle for the eye to catch, but too important to ignore. These threads guide the smallest particles and illuminate the largest structures, carrying signals across the universe with effortless grace. This force does not shout. It glides through existence with a calm grace, binding atoms into structures and guiding light across the vacuum of space. Each wave of light is a traveler born from electromagnetic motion, carrying stories from places older and farther than our minds can easily grasp. These waves never seem to tire. They cross the cosmos unchanged, as if time itself struggles to catch them. Electricity and magnetism, once thought separate, reveal their unity whenever they meet. They twist around one another, shaping fields that move with purpose, forming invisible loops that envelope planets and stars alike. Even the device playing these words relies on their delicate cooperation, a partnership that keeps modern life glowing softly in the dark. Yet the deeper we look into their behavior, the more peculiar they appear. Some fields migrate through space, untouched, unaffected by distance or decay, as if they belong to a realm where aging has no meaning. If you picture the universe as an ocean, electromagnetism becomes its shimmering surface, rippling with patterns that travel endlessly. Every charge creates a disturbance, every disturbance creates a wave, and every wave carries a fragment of the cosmos outward. The world we know, its textures, colors, warmth emerges from this subtle dance, a choreography that never pauses, and still questions remain. Why does this force manifest with such elegance? Why does it interact with matter in ways no other force can replicate? Its unity, its reach, its timelessness all hint at depth beneath the explanations we accept. Perhaps electromagnetism is not merely a force but a sign, pointing toward a framework that supports all others. Some thinkers have wondered whether electromagnetism acts as a bridge, linking the visible world to deeper currents that lie beyond our senses. They imagine it as a mediator, translating the universe's quiet intentions into motions we can observe. Whether or not that is true, the idea itself invites a kind of soft wonder. It asks us to pause and notice the unseen rhythms passing through us, shaping every moment without demanding recognition. In reflecting on these ideas, we begin to sense a subtle connection between forces once considered unrelated, a hint that their harmony might reveal something profound. Perhaps the truth is near. For generations, thinkers have sensed that the forces shaping the universe may share a single origin, a quiet unity hidden behind their different behaviors. Gravity bends space, electromagnetism hums through atoms. The strong and weak forces sculpt the heart of matter, yet each one feels like a separate note in a song we have not fully heard. Imagine the cosmos as a vast instrument, its strings vibrating with unseen harmony, each force playing its part while answering to a deeper pattern we have not yet uncovered. Though we describe them with different names, their interactions feel too coordinated to be entirely separate, from ancient philosophers to modern physicists. Countless minds have searched for that underlying principle. Some imagined it as symmetry, others as balance, others still as a single field woven through everything. Their languages changed over the centuries, but the intuition remained the same. Nature feels too organized, too elegant, to be a collection of unrelated rules. Something binds its laws together. Occasionally, discoveries reveal hints of that unity. Particles behave in ways that suggest hidden connections. Forces that seem unrelated merge at extreme energies. Mathematical patterns appear where none were expected, as if the universe were quietly offering clues. And yet, just as answers begin to form, new mysteries appear, deepening the sense that we are brushing against the edges of a truth more encompassing than any theory yet written. The idea of a unified framework is not about equations, but about perspective. It encourages us to view reality as a single unfolding story rather than a set of disconnected events. Every interaction, every spark of light, every orbiting world becomes part of a larger structure. Even our own lives, fragile and fleeting, are shaped by these hidden principles that guide the cosmos. But unity is elusive. Each step toward it reveals gaps, anomalies, or contradictions. Instead of discouraging curiosity, these breaks in understanding act like doors, inviting us to look further. They remind us that our explanations, though impressive, are still incomplete. They whisper that there are depths untouched, patterns unseen, relationships waiting to be recognized. In contemplating this, we find ourselves drawn into a softer wonder. Perhaps the universe is not divided at all. Perhaps its forces are branches of the same ancient root, spreading through reality with quiet purpose. If that is true, then everything we observe, every star, every particle, every drifting moment carries an echo of that deeper origin. And the more we search, the clearer the echo becomes. Some thinkers believe that unity may be found not in the forces themselves, but in the spaces between them, in the subtle transitions where one influence fades and another begins. In those boundaries, they imagine a quieter rule at work, something too soft to measure, yet too consistent to ignore. Even if this vision remains unproven, it broadens our sense of what might exist behind the visible world. As we move forward, we carry this possibility with us, letting it shape the questions we ask and the mysteries we follow. Each step reveals more. The search continues, guided by curiosity alone, always seeking. Long before stars formed, before atoms assembled themselves into anything familiar, there was motion. A trembling, a drifting, a soft unfolding across the newborn dark. It was not violent, not sudden. It was more like a quiet gesture, a suggestion whispered into the emptiness. Motion came first, and everything else followed. Even now, when we look across the cosmos, nothing is truly still. Not the stars anchored in their orbits, not the atoms trembling in your fingertips, not even the void itself, which ripples with subtle fluctuations. Stillness, despite how comforting it may feel, is only an illusion created at human scale. The universe prefers movement. If you watch long enough, you begin to sense that motion carries meaning. A drifting particle loops, a distant world turns. A galaxy stretches its luminous arms, and in each gesture lies a hint of communication. Not language as we know it, but something older, quieter, woven into the nature of existence itself. When an object moves, it responds to something gravity's pull, an unseen curve in space, the residue of ancient events. Each motion is a reply to the universe's invisible instructions. Even the smallest vibrations carry echoes of creation. An atom quivers not because it chooses to, but because the fabric surrounding it is never still. Space fluctuates, energy stirs, and matter responds like a leaf caught in a faint breeze. The motions are tiny, but they reveal a rule. The universe is never at rest. Deep within that rule lies a question most people never think to ask. Is motion simply a consequence of forces, or is it a message passed between every piece of existence? Consider the path of a planet circling its star. It follows a curve carved not by the star's insistence, but by the way space bends around the star's presence. The planet drifts along that curve because the universe has shaped a lane for it to follow, a route so subtle it appears natural. But that naturalness is precisely what makes it mysterious. Who shaped the curve? Why does space respond to matter with such gentle certainty? When we look at motion through that lens, it becomes more than mechanics. It becomes the universe revealing itself through behavior. Each orbit, rotation, and drift forms part of a story older than time. Motion, in this sense, is expression. It hints at patterns beneath perception, rules too delicate to see, yet too consistent to dismiss. And as we follow these motions, we start to notice recurring shapes, as if the universe repeats certain gestures with intention. The circle, in particular, appears again and again, whispering of balance and harmony. A shape so persistent cannot be ignored. Asterisk, when you trace the motions of the universe, one shape appears with astonishing regularity: the circle. Planets glide in curved paths. Electrons swirl within atoms. Storms spin perfect spirals when viewed from above. Even galaxies unfurl in sweeping arms that curve with familiar grace. The circle is not rare nor accidental. It is the universe's signature repeating itself. Across scales so vast and so small that the pattern becomes almost impossible to overlook. Picture a planet orbiting its star. It never moves in a straight line. Straightness, in nature, is fragile. The moment a force touches it, the path bends. Curving requires balance: one pull drawing inward, another momentum pressing outward. Those two influences meet, and the circle emerges. It is harmony carved into motion, a compromise between falling and escaping. The planet does neither. It dances. This balance reveals something subtle. The circle is more than a shape. It is a clue. When a path curves, it suggests that something unseen is guiding it. Ancient cultures noticed this long before modern science gave the idea new names. They drew circles to represent time, cycles, creation, and the heavens. Some carved spirals into stone, believing they reflected the movement of the sky or the turning of life. Others saw the circle as a boundary between the known and the infinite. They didn't measure the geometry. They felt its meaning in many temples and monuments around the world. Circles appear where one might least expect them, as if ancient. Builders sensed a deeper rule connecting the earth beneath their feet to the stars above. They aligned their structures to celestial events, tracing curves that matched the heavens. Though separated by oceans and centuries, these circles echoed one another, hinting at a universal recognition that the circle symbolized more than form. It symbolized continuity. The more we observe nature, the clearer that continuity becomes. Water whirls into spirals as it drains. Hurricanes twist into tight, rotating systems. Galaxies grow into vast whirlpools of stars, each arm curling toward infinity. In each case, the forces differ, the environments differ, yet the pattern remains. Something, it seems, prefers the circle. What if the universe draws this shape because it reveals the path of least resistance? Or perhaps the circle is simply how motion behaves when following the quiet rules laid into space itself. When matter and energy respond to those rules, the same shape emerges again and again. Like handwriting from an unseen author, this repetition invites a deeper question. If circles dominate motion on every scale, might they reflect an underlying structure that threads through the cosmos? The idea feels almost poetic-y. Its presence is undeniable. And when we look past the shapes themselves, something deeper begins to stir. Because behind the circle lies rhythm. Asterisk, if we look beyond the shapes traced by motion, we begin to notice something even more subtle. Rhythm. Not sound, not beat, but a quiet pulsing in the behavior of space itself. The universe may seem silent, yet beneath that silence lies movement too soft for senses to detect. Space, though often described as empty, is anything but. It flickers, shifts, trembles with minute fluctuations, as though carrying its own secret heartbeat. Imagine the cosmos as a vast ocean. On its surface, stars drift like distant ships, carried by currents they neither question nor resist. Yet beneath that surface, hidden tides move with purpose. Waves of energy ripple across unimaginable distances, shaping the formation of galaxies and guiding the flow of matter. These rhythms are faint, but their influence appears everywhere. Clouds of gas collapse in sync, clusters of galaxies form along invisible lines, and certain regions of the universe move differently from what gravity alone predicts. Some ancient cultures imagined the universe as a breathing entity, expanding and contracting with cosmic breath. They did not speak of oscillations or waves, yet their metaphors reflected something recognizable. The sense that space itself possesses motion independent of the objects within it. Modern observers, too, have noticed hints of this. Tiny fluctuations in the cosmic background, strange motions in distant clusters, and phenomena that defy neat explanations all suggest that space carries patterns we have yet to fully decode. These rhythms may not resemble anything familiar. They may be long, slow cycles spanning millions of years, or delicate ripples moving faster than light itself. They may arise from unknown forces, or from the structure of space woven at the smallest scales. Whatever their origin, they act like the universe's silent instructions, steering matter along lines we cannot see. When we watch how galaxies align in enormous filaments, how stars drift towards certain regions, or how empty spaces form pockets with peculiar shapes, the presence of rhythm becomes difficult to ignore. Movement is not random, it echoes something deeper. Even the quantum fabric beneath matter shivers with constant fluctuations, tiny rhythms that never cease. This idea changes how we see motion. Instead of imagining objects moving through an empty stage, we begin to imagine the stage itself in motion, guiding everything that crosses it. The universe becomes less a collection of things and more a single connected entity, expressing itself through patterns and pulses, and as those rhythms guide motion, they reveal a truth both comforting and strange. The universe is not still, not silent, not separate. It is alive with subtle harmonies, shaping the path of everything that exists. Soon, we turn our attention to the energy behind these motions, to the forces that illuminate, structure, and sustain the cosmos. Light travels through the universe with a patience that borders on the eternal, leaving distant stars and drifting worlds without ever pausing to rest. It moves with a kind of quiet confidence, crossing gulfs so wide they seem almost unreal, yet it never hesitates. When a beam of starlight reaches your eyes tonight, it carries the memory of a place that may no longer exist. A moment that unfolded long before human history began. In that sense, light is not simply illumination. It is a messenger from ages we will never touch, arriving softly in the present as though time itself agreed to hold a door open. Imagine a star on the far edge of the galaxy, burning with a steady rhythm. From its surface, countless bursts of light escape, beginning journeys that may last millions of years. They glide through the cosmic dark, slipping past drifting dust, weaving around gravitational curves, moving in straight lines when nothing disturbs them. Unlike matter, they do not slow or fade. Their speed remains absolute, as if the universe granted them a privilege no other traveler receives. This constancy is one of light's greatest mysteries, unwavering, untiring, perfectly loyal to its own nature. Light behaves strangely, almost theatrically, as though it has been written into reality with special intention. It can act like a wave, spreading gently across space, yet also behave like a particle, landing with pinpoint precision. It reveals galaxies billions of years old, maps the structure of cosmic filaments, and exposes the delicate shapes of nebulae. Every color, every shimmer, every shadow is a note in the long story light has been telling since the dawn of existence. A tale composed across distances so immense they defy understanding. But behind its beauty lies mystery. Why should light move at the same speed everywhere in the universe? Why should nothing outrun it? Why does it carry information so faithfully across time? These questions linger like unanswered invitations, hinting that light is more than a physical phenomenon. It is as if the universe has embedded a rule within existence. This speed, this behavior, this elegance. Do not alter it. Even more alluring is the way light interacts with everything it touches. It outlines the edges of distant worlds, whispers the temperatures of stars, and paints the sky with colors born from ancient fires. Every sunrise is a reminder that the universe is constantly speaking, and light is the language it chooses most often. When you stand beneath the night sky, the glow you see is a tapestry woven from countless messages. Some come from stars still burning. Others arrive from those long extinguished, and a few may have traveled from places we have not yet imagined. All of them drift toward us because light never rests, never turns back, never grows weary. These unseen fields form the silent backdrop of existence, stretching across every corner of the cosmos. While light reveals what can be seen, these fields reveal what can be felt, guiding matter with an influence profound, softly shaping reality in ways we notice. Though we move through the world believing we inhabit empty space, the truth is gentler and far stranger. We are suspended within a vast web of invisible fields that shape every moment of our existence. These fields are not loud or dramatic. They do not spark or flash as they pass through us. Instead, they behave like quiet oceans layered over one another, each one exerting a subtle influence we seldom notice yet constantly obey. Electrical fields, magnetic fields, gravitational pulls, and other forces we have not fully named all blend together in a silent choreography that guides matter from the smallest particles to the largest clusters of galaxies. If you could lift the veil from reality for a moment, the space around you would appear anything but empty. Threads of influence would stretch in every direction, pulsing softly, weaving around your body, your home, your planet. These threads extend outward across unimaginable distances, connecting stars to their neighbors, shaping the paths of comets, and nudging drifting dust into patterns that eventually become solar systems. Even light, swift and seemingly untouchable, bends and curves when it encounters these fields, revealing their presence without ever showing their form. Occasionally, the universe offers hints that these fields hold deeper complexity than we assume. Some regions of space behave in ways that defy predictions, as though the fabric there is woven tighter or looser than expected. Galaxies tilt in synchronized directions despite vast distances between them, suggesting the influence of a structure too large for telescopes to fully capture. And in certain cosmic surveys, enormous shapes appear arrangements of matter so immense they challenge the boundaries of chance. These observations do not provide answers. They simply widen the mystery, encouraging us to imagine a universe held together by forces more intricate than our current understanding allows. Standing beneath the night sky, it becomes easier to sense this hidden architecture. The stars appear scattered, yet their positions reflect influences stretching across millions of light years. Our own planet drifts through fields that wrap around it like soft currents, shaping its magnetic shield, guiding charged particles, and protecting life in ways we rarely contemplate. These invisible patterns remind us that reality is not isolated pieces but a single, interconnected whole. Once we begin to recognize the presence of these fields, the world feels different. Familiar spaces seem richer, infused with quiet activity. Every movement, every spark of light, every moment unfolds within a framework too subtle for our senses but too consistent to dismiss. It invites the question, what fuels these fields, and why do they stretch so effortlessly across the universe? As we follow that question, we approach an even stranger force, one that expands the cosmos itself. Although these currents remain invisible, they shape our reality with unwavering persistence, guiding events both immense and delicate. They blur the line between emptiness and structure, reminding us that what we call space is alive with influence. And in that realization, a deeper curiosity begins to rise within us. For generations, astronomers believed the universe should be slowing down. Gravity, they assumed, would gradually draw galaxies inward, tugging the cosmos toward a quieter, denser future. But when scientists looked carefully at distant galaxies, expecting to witness this gentle deceleration, they found the opposite. The universe wasn't slowing, it was speeding up. Space itself seemed to be stretching faster and faster, as though pushed by an unseen hand. That invisible pressure was given a name: dark energy, a term that describes nothing, explains nothing, and yet influences everything. Dark energy behaves like a silent expansion filling the spaces between galaxies. It does not glow or ripple. It does not follow the rules we expect. It simply pushes, softly but relentlessly, persuading entire clusters of galaxies to drift apart with increasing haste. Imagine a force so delicate it cannot be touched, yet so powerful it shapes the destiny of billions of worlds. This paradox defines dark energy: impossibly subtle, impossibly strong, and utterly unknown. The strangest part is its abundance. Most of the universe, by every current estimate, is made not of stars, planets, or particles, but of this invisible influence. Everything we understand, every atom, every beam of light accounts for only a tiny fraction of reality. The rest remains hidden, operating beyond comprehension. It is unsettling to realize that humanity has mapped continents, explored oceans, dissected matter, and probed the depths of space. Yet the dominant component of existence is something we cannot see or measure directly. The clues we do have are unsettling. Some galaxies race away at speeds that defy previous models, as though propelled by a force with no origin. The expansion of the universe increases over time instead of weakening. There are even regions where the behavior of empty space diverges from expectations, as if dark energy gathers or thins for reasons that elude detection. These clues form a puzzle with missing pieces, a whisper of a mechanism that lies just beyond our reach. Dark energy feels less like a force and more like a verdict written into the fabric of space. It has no clear source, no familiar pattern, no comforting symmetry. It simply acts, indifferent to our questions. And because we cannot grasp its nature, it becomes a symbol of a deeper truth that the universe holds. Secrets far greater than our theories allow. When we stand beneath the night sky, the distance between stars appears serene, even peaceful. Yet behind that calm lies a constant widening, a growing separation that began long before we arrived and will continue long after we are gone. Every moment, space stretches a little more, reshaping the architecture of the cosmos in ways we are only beginning to glimpse. As we move forward, we leave these invisible energies behind and turn our attention to matter itself, the particles that build everything we know, and the strange secrets they carry within. If you could shrink yourself far beyond the reach of sight, past cells, past molecules, down into the quiet interior of matter, you would find worlds more mysterious than anything imagined in myth. Atoms live their tiny realms with their own landscapes, rhythms, and secrets. They are often described as simple building blocks, tidy pieces snapping together to form everything familiar. But the truth is gentler and stranger. Each atom behaves less like an object and more like a miniature solar system, a place where invisible choreography guides every motion. At the center sits a dense core, small beyond comprehension, yet powerful enough to anchor the swirling activity around it. Electrons drift through these realms like quiet nomads, never still, never fully predictable. They do not travel in neat circles or fixed routes. Instead, they move as though responding to a music no one else can hear, appearing here, disappearing there, slipping between possibilities with effortless grace. Their paths are not lines, but clouds soft, regions of likelihood rather than certainty. This behavior defies the rules we expect from the physical world. An electron can seem to inhabit two positions at once, as if reality cannot decide where to place it. Other times, it leaps from one state to another without crossing the space in between, jumping like a thought instead of traveling like a particle. These movements feel less mechanical and more intentional, as though the atom obeys instructions written in a language hidden from our senses. Even the nucleus, steady and compact, carries mysteries of its own. Particles inside it press together with unimaginable force, bound by rules so extreme they seem to border on the unreal. If those rules loosened even slightly, the matter of the universe would fly apart in an instant. And yet the nucleus holds, quiet and unwavering, as though following an ancient promise made at the birth of time. When we zoom out, the idea becomes even more unsettling. Everything around you, your breath, your thoughts, the surface beneath your feet is built from these tiny worlds, each one buzzing with activity that contradicts intuition. The solidity you feel, the warmth you sense, the life you experience, all rise from particles behaving more like shadows and whispers than solid pieces. Matter, at its foundation, is not firm or stable. It is possibility, If atoms followed the simple rules we were once taught, the universe would be far less interesting. Instead, they behave like actors improvising within constraints we barely understand. They choose paths, shift identities, and respond to influences that remain invisible. The closer we look, the more their actions resemble messages encoded within the heart of reality. And perhaps that is the most intriguing thought. Atoms may not merely exist, they may participate. They move, shift, and transform as though engaging with a script written long before matter condensed into stars or life began to dream. Their strange behaviors invite us deeper, hinting that the true mysteries of matter emerge when particles meet, interact, and reveal how little we truly know. Asterisk among the strangest truths hidden beneath. Ordinary experience is the idea that the smallest pieces of reality refuse to behave like solid objects. A particle, something we imagine as a tiny bead of matter, can stretch into a soft blur, spreading itself like a ripple on water. At the same time, a wave, which should be nothing more than motion, can strike with the precision of a single point. This duality creates a world where certainty dissolves, where location becomes a question rather than an answer. It invites us to imagine that matter whispers rather than stands, moving between possibilities with an elegance that feels almost otherworldly. To picture this strange behavior, imagine tossing a stone into a still pond. Waves spread outward, overlapping and fading, moving with a softness that reveals shape without ever becoming solid. Particles act in a similar way, drifting through space as if they carry echoes of many paths at once. They do not travel cleanly from one point to another. They smear across possibility, leaving traces that suggest multiple stories happening simultaneously. When we try to observe them, they shrink back into sharper form, as if choosing a single identity only when required. This dance between spread and shape hints that the foundation of reality is more fluid than fixed. Because of this, the world we move through is built from ingredients that defy the boundaries our senses expect. A particle may linger in shadowed possibility before revealing itself. Or it may behave like a tremor spreading through a field rather than a unit of matter. These paradoxes are not mistakes. They are clues. They suggest that the universe operates on rules that value potential as highly as presence. Even objects that feel solid in our hands are composed of entities that pulse and fade like distant echoes. When stacked together, these whispers form the familiar world, but the strangeness beneath never truly disappears. Consider the moment a particle encounters a barrier. Instead of stopping cleanly, it may seep through, as though the obstacle were only a suggestion. Or it may reflect, split, or flicker between paths that should not coexist. This behavior feels less like motion and more like decision. Something in the particle seems to evaluate its options within a landscape we cannot see. These choices remind us that reality, at its smallest scale, behaves more like a story unfolding in many directions. The particle is present, yet not fixed, guided by rules that blend possibility with action, and in this blurring of identity lies the heart of the puzzle. Waves can spread across vast space, carrying delicate hints of presence, yet a particle can collapse into a single point the moment it is noticed. The universe seems to offer both stories at once, allowing matter to behave like sound and like stone, depending on how it is touched. This dual nature invites us deeper, suggesting that when time enters the picture, the mystery only grows. Each layer reveals something unexpected today. Asterisk time feels absolute to us. It flows forward with a steady rhythm, marking every heartbeat and every passing moment. Yet, when we descend into the hidden interior of matter, time becomes something far less obedient. Particles do not experience it the way we do. Some decay in an instant, vanishing before they can be properly observed, while others, identical in every measurable ways, far longer than expected, as if time's river slows around them. Their behavior suggests that time is not a universal rule but a shifting landscape, bending and stretching depending on what moves through it. Imagine a particle drifting through space, barely larger than a whisper. For us, moments unfold one after another. But for that particle, time may feel almost frozen, as though the seconds refuse to touch it. In certain extreme environments, a particle can travel impossibly far in what seems like a heartbeat to us. Yet to the particle, hardly any time has passed. The boundary between now and later becomes blurred, stretched like soft fabric. This strange elasticity challenges the comforting idea that every corner of the universe shares the same ticking clock. Even stranger are the particles that appear and disappear before they can be fully captured, flickering in and out of existence like sparks from an unseen fire. They seem to borrow time, existing briefly in a state where ordinary rules loosen their grip. Some last longer when they move faster, others when they move slower, and a few behave so unpredictably that it feels as though they slip between moments entirely. These events give the impression that particles do not simply live within time, but interact with it, shaping and reshaping its flow in ways we barely understand. Occasionally, particles interact in ways that hint at loop's tiny twists, where cause and effect seem to brush against each other. A particle might influence another at a distance without any apparent delay, as though time itself shrank to allow the connection. Such interactions, though subtle, suggest that the smallest pieces of reality might navigate time the way birds navigate air, feeling currents and pressures invisible to us. When we scale back up to the world we know, these mysteries remain hidden beneath the appearance of stability. Our lives move forward, clocks tick, seasons change. Yet beneath every object, inside every breath, particles behave as though time is an option rather than a command. They age differently, respond differently, and sometimes seem to ignore time altogether. It is unsettling, but also strangely comforting, to realize that the universe allows such flexibility in its most fundamental layers. This idea leads us toward a deeper question. If time behaves differently inside matter, what does that say about the forces that bind matter itself? And what secrets might emerge when we expand from small particles to the vast structures they eventually create? If you could drift far beyond the Milky Way, past the quiet edges of our galactic home, and continue outward into the deep dark, the universe would begin to reveal a structure almost too vast to believe. Galaxies would no longer appear as isolated islands shining alone in a sea of emptiness. Instead, they would gather into patterns, threads, filaments, and clusters stretching across distances so immense they defy imagination. This is the cosmic web, the largest pattern known to existence. A silent architecture connecting billions of galaxies in shapes that resemble a woven tapestry suspended across the void. From afar, these filaments look like luminous rivers crossing the darkness, their currents made not of water but of stars, dust, an entire civilization's worth of potential. They wind and intersect, creating junctions where hundreds of galaxies crowd together, drawn toward invisible anchors that seem to orchestrate their gathering. Between the threads lie enormous voids, vast pockets of near-nothingness that only highlight the web's intricate design. It is difficult not to see intention in such structure. The scale alone is overwhelming. A single filament can stretch hundreds of millions of light-years, its shape somehow preserved across distances too large for simple gravitational pull to account for. Yet the filaments appear purposeful, bending and curving as though following lines etched into the fabric of space long before galaxies ever formed. The cosmic web does not resemble the aftermath of a chaotic explosion. It looks like a blueprint, one so delicate and enormous that we are only beginning to trace its outlines. As researchers map these cosmic threads, strange alignments continue to emerge. Galaxies spin in similar directions despite being impossibly far apart. Clusters form chains that extend farther than theories predict. In some regions, the distribution of matter appears too orderly, too structured, almost as if guided by forces we have not yet named. These observations linger like whispers, hinting that something deeper shapes the web from within the darkness. Even light obeys the web. As it travels through space, it bends subtly when passing near filaments, revealing their presence without ever exposing their full composition. That bending suggests a hidden weight, a mass woven into the web that we cannot see directly. This invisible material behaves like scaffolding for the cosmos, holding galaxies in place while urging them into positions that create the webs. Unmistakable design. When you imagine all of this, the universe begins to feel less like an explosion frozen in time and more like a living map, one that stretches far beyond the reach of any single mind. The cosmic web invites quiet wonder. It asks us to consider the possibility that the universe, in its grandest expression, is guided by subtle forces that reach across distances too large for words. And as we follow these threads deeper, another mystery comes into view. Within these vast structures, galaxies themselves move in graceful unison, shaped by patterns that echo on every scale. If you were to look at a spiral galaxy from above, the view would feel almost hypnotic. Vast arms unfurl outward like delicate brushstrokes, each one made of billions of stars drifting in unison. The pattern is so graceful, so endlessly repeated across the cosmos, that it feels less like a natural accident and more like choreography. Galaxies do not meander or scatter. They swirl, turning their luminous bodies as though answering a quiet rhythm echoing through space. These spirals appear everywhere nearby, behind dust, in distant corners of the observable universe. Their shapes resemble storms on Earth, the whirl of shells found on ancient shores, the curling tendrils of plants reaching toward the sun. It is as if the spiral shape belongs to a universal language, one written not in words but in motion itself. Whenever vast systems encounter balance between inward pull and outward momentum, the spiral emerges, repeating the same form from the scale of atoms to the scale of galaxies. But within these cosmic spirals lies a mystery that refuses to fade. The stars in these galaxies do not behave as they should. According to classical expectations, the stars near the center should spin faster, while those near the edge should drift more slowly. Instead, many galaxies rotate as though their stars are locked into place by some unseen framework, maintaining speeds that defy predictions. The edges rotate almost as swiftly as the core, creating a consistency impossible to explain with visible matter alone. This strange behavior hints at something hidden, a presence that shapes and stabilizes the galaxy from within. Some describe it as unseen mass, others as a kind of invisible scaffolding woven through the spiral's arms. Whatever name it carries, its influence is undeniable. The galaxy's rotation suggests a guiding structure, a steady, quiet conductor ensuring the stars follow their script. Without it, the spirals would fly apart, scattering their brilliance into the void. With it, they remain intact, turning for billions of years like celestial whirlpools held together by a force we cannot touch or see. When observed through gentle imagination, the spiral galaxy feels alive. Each arm is a river of starlight. Each turn reflects the balance of gravity, momentum, and a hidden influence that binds the entire structure into harmony. Watching these spirals invites a question too persistent to ignore. Why should the universe choose this form again and again? The spiral shape suggests order and intention behind motion that stretches beyond simple physics. It hints that something deeper, perhaps woven into the fabric of existence, favors this elegant curve. And if galaxies obey this choreography, moving in patterns that reflect design rather than chaos, then the structure of the cosmos may be more interconnected than we ever suspected. This thought draws us toward the next mystery. If individual galaxies follow hidden rules, what happens when galaxies connect to one another? What bridges link these enormous systems across the dark? From a distance, galaxies appear as isolated islands of light scattered across a sea of darkness. Yet the deeper we look, the more that illusion dissolves. Galaxies are not alone. They are connected by faint, almost ghost-like structures, bridges of stars, streams of gas, and invisible pathways that stretch across intergalactic space. These connections are so delicate, so easy to overlook, that for centuries they escaped notice entirely. But once revealed, they change everything about how we understand the universe. Imagine floating between two distant galaxies, far beyond the reach of any star's comforting glow. At first, the void seems absolute, but with patient eyes, subtle shapes begin to emerge. Thin tendrils of matter drift through the darkness, forming arcs and strands that trace invisible lines of influence. Some of these bridges are composed of stars pulled gently from their homes, forming trails that stretch like cosmic fingerprints across millions of light years. Others contain gas so rarefied it might be mistaken for nothing at all, yet it flows steadily, moving as though guided by an unseen current. These intergalactic pathways reveal surprising relationships. Some galaxies exchange material through these delicate bridges, sharing gas that fuels new generations of stars. Others appear to rotate in eerie synchrony, their motions aligned across distances far too large for direct interaction. It is as if they respond to a quiet signal woven into the space between them. A whispered instruction carried across the cosmic web. Even more mysterious are the enormous structures discovered in recent years. Patterns of galaxies arranged in lines, sheets, or curves that extend far beyond what gravity alone can organize. These alignments suggest a deeper order, a hidden architecture connecting galaxies across unimaginable distances. The bridges hint that galaxies may not simply cluster together by chance. They may be following the paths laid down by forces that operate on scales we can barely comprehend. The existence of these connections transforms our understanding of cosmic isolation. Instead of drifting alone through the void, galaxies form communities, vast networks, sharing influence, motion, and history. The universe begins to resemble a living system more than a scattered collection of objects. Each bridge becomes a thread in a grand tapestry, tying the cosmos together with extraordinary subtlety. These connections also deepen the central mystery of our exploration. If galaxies communicate through these hidden ties, what carries the message? What directs their shared motion? What invisible hand shapes the way they gather, stretch, and align across such immense distances? The answers remain elusive, but the presence of these bridges makes one thing clear. The universe operates with more coherence, more structure, and more unity than we once believed. And so the question grows, if galaxies are connected, could the universe itself hold memories of its past, storing echoes of older eras within its vast architecture? As we step into the next chapter, we follow that question deeper toward the possibility that the cosmos remembers more than it reveals. There is a quiet idea that lingers at the edge of modern cosmology, too large to ignore, too unsettling to fully embrace. It suggests that the universe we call home may not be the first, that long before the Big Bang ignited the space we inhabit, something else existed. Another cosmos, another chapter, perhaps many. Most scientific discussions step around this possibility, treating it like a shadow cast by speculation. Yet the clues remain, faint but persistent, inviting those who listen closely to consider a story far older than our own. When we study the universe's earliest light, we expect smoothness, a uniform glow marking the beginning of everything. But instead, we find strange irregularities, cold patches scattered through the cosmic background like bruises on an ancient surface. These regions do not match predictions. They appear slightly off, as if touched by events that occurred before our universe began to expand. Some scientists whisper that these scars might be the fingerprints of a former universe brushing against ours, leaving quiet reminders of a history erased by time. Imagine standing on the shoreline after a tide retreats. The water is gone, but the patterns it carved remain. Our universe may be similar. The Big Bang might not have been a beginning, but a transition. A moment when one cosmic cycle ended and another rose from its fading echoes. If that is true, the background noise we detect is not simply the residue of our origin, but a faint echo of something old, previous cosmos breathing its last as ours took its first uncertain steps. Certain regions of space seem almost too peculiar to belong naturally to our universe's early layouts. Their temperatures drift from expectations. Their alignments lean ever so slightly in directions that defy random chance. They behave like artifacts, relics of a past that should not exist. These anomalies are rarely highlighted, yet they quietly challenge the idea that the Big Bang was absolute. And then there are the unexplained, patterns subtle but undeniable, large-scale arrangements of matter that seem to stretch beyond theoretical limits, almost as though they were inherited rather than formed anew. They tempt us to ask whether some memory of a previous universe seeped into this one, slipping through whatever boundary separates endings from beginnings. When you allow this possibility to settle, the universe feels different. No longer a solitary creation, but part of a lineage, a sequence, a vast chain of cosmoses rising, expanding, fading, and passing their secrets forward in ways we barely recognize. It is an idea that softens the finality of the Big Bang and transforms it into something cyclical, almost organic, like breath. And if the universe before ours left marks on the sky, then perhaps it also left messages in the oldest light we can still observe, a faint afterglow carrying hints from a time before time. Asterisk, if you listen closely to the universe, there is a faint hum woven into the darkness, soft ancient glow spread across the sky. It is not bright enough to cast shadows or illuminate a path, yet it fills the entire cosmos with quiet persistence. This glow, the cosmic microwave background, is often described as the universe's first light. But when we look more carefully, it begins to resemble something deeper, a message written across the sky, carrying the memory of events older than the stars themselves. The afterglow appears simple at first, a uniform warmth left behind by the early universe. But as instruments sharpened and maps grew more detailed, something unexpected emerged. The glow was not perfectly smooth. It contained tiny temperature variations, scars, and cold spots that refused to align with the neat predictions of theory. These irregularities feel almost like fingerprints pressed into the cosmic fabric, hints of moments that should not exist if the Big Bang were truly the beginning of everything. Among these mysteries, one stands out, a strangely large cold region, far cooler and wider than any explanation comfortably allows. It hangs in the background like a bruise on the cosmic canvas. Some say it is a statistical fluke, a quirk of chance. Others whisper that it may be the silent echo of something beyond our universe, remnant of an earlier cosmos brushing against our own newborn reality. Though the idea remains controversial, its presence stirs a quiet unease, as if we are witnessing the shadow of a memory that predates time. Then there are the alignments, subtle, improbable patterns in the afterglow that stretch across vast distances. Certain regions appear to face the same direction, as though responding to an unseen axis. These patterns challenge randomness and tempt us to imagine that the afterglow is not chaos but structure, not noise but signal. It behaves less like the residue of an explosion and more like the fading imprint of an older story. When you imagine the afterglow this way as a message rather than a left over, the universe becomes a little more intimate. The light we detect today began its journey when everything was still forming, long before galaxies ignited or matter settled into familiar shapes. It traveled untouched across billions of years, carrying with it the shape of the cosmos in its earliest moments. Yet beneath those moments lies the possibility of something even older, concealed in the faint irregularities we struggle to interpret. The thought is both unsettling and soothing. It suggests that our universe may carry whispers from a time before our time, encoded in the oldest light still shining. A fragment of a story we were never meant to read, yet one that hangs above us every night. And if this afterglow holds traces from before our beginning, then what does that say about the nature of creation itself? Does the universe begin only once? Or does it rise from the ashes of its predecessors, repeating cycles older than memory? The next question leads us deeper toward the possibility of endless creation and renewal. Asterisk. What if the universe is not a single story with a clean beginning and a definite end, but part of a sequence, an endless rhythm playing out across unimaginable spans of time? This idea has lingered in human thought for thousands of years, whispered in ancient myths and echoed in modern theories. It suggests that the cosmos breathes in cycles, expanding, collapsing, and rising again, each version building upon the ruins of the one before. The possibility feels both unsettling and strangely comforting, as if creation itself needs renewal, just as life on Earth moves through seasons of growth and rest. Across cultures, echoes of this idea appear again and again. Hindu cosmology speaks of vast eras of creation and dissolution, stretching over timescales so long they make stars seem young. The Maya envisioned cycles of worlds, each born from the remnants of the last. Even in Greek thought, the universe was imagined to burn itself down only to rise again, purified and reborn. These stories did not emerge from shared communication, yet they mirror one another, with uncanny precision, as though humanity sensed a truth too large to articulate directly. Modern cosmology, though cautious, has begun to revisit similar possibilities. Some theories propose that the universe may eventually slow, contract, and collapse into itself, only to explode outward again in a new Big Bang. Others imagine cycles where each universe leaves faint imprints on the next, like rings in a tree trunk. If that is true, then the clues we observe: strange cold spots, unusual alignments, unexpected structures may be hand-me-downs from earlier cosmic eras, passed quietly through the boundary between endings and beginnings. Imagine for a moment that the universe is not a line but a loop. Every expansion leads, inevitably, to contraction. Every contraction seeds a new era, carrying forward fragments of memory embedded in the patterns of space. Time would not be a straight road, but a wheel turning endlessly, each rotation giving rise to new stars, new galaxies, new possibilities. And we, brief visitors within this vast rhythm, happen to live in one chapter of an infinite book. This perspective reshapes everything. The Big Bang stops feeling like a singular creation and becomes part of a long cosmic heartbeat. Matter itself might carry traces of previous cycles, subtle patterns woven into its behavior. The structure of the cosmic web could reflect not just the dynamics of this universe, but resonances inherited from others. Even the unseen forces guiding the cosmos might carry lingering echoes from realities that faded long before ours began. And if the universe truly resets, then what we observe is not the first attempt at creation, it is the latest. A link in a chain that stretches back into eras we cannot name. A reminder that beginnings are rarely absolute. As we step into the next chapter, this idea invites a new question. If the universe cycles endlessly, then what role does consciousness play within these repeating patterns? Does awareness emerge anew each time, or does it carry something forward across the great divide? Sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, a question rises uninvited. Does the universe notice us? Not in a human way, with thoughts or intentions, but in some softer sense. We observe the cosmos, yet something about the act feels reciprocal, as if attention itself stirs a subtle reaction. The idea seems bold, but the evidence nudges gently. Many phenomena, especially at the smaller scales, shift their behavior the moment we try to look at them. Particles that wander freely suddenly settle into precise outcomes, as though awareness brushes against their paths and encourages them to choose a form. Picture the universe as a still lake. When untouched, its surface reflects a perfect darkness. But when someone approaches, even with quiet curiosity, the water trembles. Observation becomes a pebble dropped into the calm. Ripples spread outward, delicate, but undeniable, hinting that the watcher changes the watched in ways we rarely sense. For centuries, thinkers sensed this strange reciprocity. Philosophers wondered whether consciousness was woven into the structure of existence, not merely floating atop it. Mystics suggested that awareness and reality were partners in a long, ancient dance. Modern inquiry, arriving from a different direction, began stumbling onto similar questions by accident at tiny scales. The universe behaves like an introvert caught in a spotlight. When unobserved, particles drift in possibilities, spreading like mist. When observed, they collapse into certainty, choosing a single story. It is as if attention carves a path through potential, encouraging one outcome to rise above the rest. The implication is subtle yet profound. If observation shapes behavior, even gently, then consciousness plays a role in the unfolding of events. Not by force or will, but by presence alone. The universe appears to respond to our awareness, bending ever so slightly when we lean close enough to listen. This does not mean the cosmos thinks in the way minds do. Instead, it suggests something more delicate. Reality and awareness may be intertwined threads of one tapestry. When we observe, we participate. When we wonder, we touch the fabric that shapes stars, particles, and perhaps even time itself to dot. And in this partnership, a new possibility emerges. If the universe carries rhythms and patterns sensitive to attention, then consciousness might be part of its larger design, not separate from the cosmos, but rising naturally within it, like a flower blossoming from rich soil rather than planted from outside it. The thought is both humbling and strangely comforting. It transforms us from passive observers into quiet collaborators. Each moment of awareness becomes a soft interaction with the world, a silent dialogue between mind and matter. The universe reveals itself, and in doing so, reveals something about us as well today. As we move forward, this idea invites a deeper question. If observation touches reality, then how far does this influence reach? Could consciousness shape not only the smallest particles, but the behavior of the world around us? With that question, we step into the next mystery waiting in the dark. There is something quietly unsettling about the way reality behaves when we pay attention to it. Most of the time, the world feels stable, solid, indifferent to whether anyone is watching. But when we descend into the smallest layers of existence, observation becomes a force of its own. Things change simply because they are seen. Possibilities narrow. Behaviors shift. As though the universe, usually so silent, adjusts itself when awareness brushes against it. Imagine a particle moving through space like a whisper. Left alone, it flows through many potential paths at once, a soft blur of maybes. But the moment we look, the blur collapses into a single choice. It behaves as if it knows it has been noticed. It lands in one spot, takes one path, completes one story. The universe rearranges itself, quietly acknowledging the presence of an observer. This influence does not require intent or effort. It happens by existing, by watching, by asking. The world seems to offer up one version of events only when someone steps near enough to request it. Without that attention, the particle moves through possibility. With it, the particle commits. Such behavior feels less like mechanics and more like a subtle, quiet, and strangely personal. It invites a question our ancestors felt long before our tools were precise enough to measure it. Does awareness carry weight? Not the heavy kind, but the gentle influence that nudges reality toward particular outcomes. When you imagine this, the line separating consciousness from the physical world begins to blur. The idea that reality waits to reveal itself until someone looks is both mysterious and oddly familiar. It resonates with the way experiences unfold in daily life. Moments feel more vivid when witnessed, more real when acknowledged. Perhaps the universe mirrors this pattern on every scale. If observation can shape the tiniest events, could it influence larger ones as well? Not by bending the cosmos to our will, but by participating in the unfolding of its patterns. Maybe awareness acts like a tuning fork, resonating with hidden structures, helping draw certain possibilities into being. Perhaps the presence of consciousness, wherever it appears, creates a subtle shift in the surrounding field of potential. This idea is not a claim, but an invitation. a gentle reminder that the universe might not be indifferent to its observers. It may respond in ways too delicate to measure, yet too consistent to ignore. The thought lingers like a soft echo. Reality may be more interactive than we assume, and if observation carries power, even a small one, then consciousness becomes something more than an internal experience. It becomes a participant in the cosmos, gently steering the world through its quiet attention. This leads naturally to a deeper mystery. If awareness can influence matter, what does that say about the mind itself? Is it merely a product of physical processes, or is it tapping into something larger, something that stretches beyond the body and into the fabric of reality? The mind feels intimate, private, something contained within the boundaries of our own bodies. Yet the more carefully we look, the harder it becomes to separate thought from the world around it. Ideas arrive out of nowhere, as if carried on invisible winds. Intuition strikes without warning, aligning with events we have no logical way of anticipating. Inspiration emerges in moments of stillness, as though the universe whispers possibilities into the quiet spaces of our awareness. These patterns suggest that the mind may not be an isolated island, but part of a wider landscape we are only beginning to sense. Consider the way emotions ripple outward, influencing the atmosphere of a room without a single word spoken, or how moments of intense clarity seem to synchronize with the world itself, revealing connections we had overlooked. There are times when thoughts feel guided, nudged from beyond the boundary of personal experience. It is not proof of anything mystical, but it is enough to raise a gentle question. What if consciousness interacts with the fabric of reality in ways we do not yet understand? Imagine the mind as both receiver and sender, tuned to frequencies that slip beneath everyday perception. When we focus, something changes not only inside us, but perhaps in the environment itself. A subtle alignment, a shift in probability, a resonance between inner state and outer world. These sensations, though fleeting, hint at a deeper communication between awareness and matter, one that may operate silently within the background of experience. Stories across cultures echo this idea. Ancient traditions spoke of thought as a force, capable of shaping events through unseen channels. Philosophers proposed that mind and world share a common root, branching into separate expressions, yet remaining connected beneath the surface. Even modern thinkers acknowledge that consciousness remains the least understood aspect of reality, refusing to fit cleanly into any physical explanation. When we explore this mystery, we find ourselves walking a delicate line. The goal is not to assert that mind controls matter, but to consider whether the two are intertwined in subtle, continuous ways. Perhaps the universe responds to awareness as naturally as a field responds to wind. Perhaps the structures of reality resonate with human attention, forming patterns that reflect more than chance. This perspective softens the separation between inner and outer worlds. Thoughts and physical events begin to feel like parts of one conversation, speaking across a boundary thinner than we once believed. The mind becomes a participant rather than an observer, engaged with the same hidden forces that shape stars, atoms, and time itself. And when we see consciousness this way woven into the quiet architecture of the universe, it opens a doorway to an even larger possibility. That reality may operate like an immense system of information, with mind and matter exchanging signals across its vast network. As we step into the next chapter, we follow that possibility deeper, exploring the idea of the universe not as a place, but as a living pattern of meaning. When we look closely at the universe, something subtle begins to reveal itself. Beneath the stars, beneath the drifting galaxies. Beneath even the particles that form our breath, there are patterns consistent, repeating, impossibly stable patterns. They appear not as accidents, but as quiet instructions, shaping the behavior of everything that exists. It is as though the universe is more than matter and motion. It behaves like a vast library of information, each rule written into the fabric of reality long before the first star ignited. Imagine wandering through this library. There are no pages, no symbols carved into stone. Instead, the instructions appear in the way particles attract and repel, in the speed of light that never falters, in the symmetry of spirals that form in storms, shells, and galaxies alike. These patterns echo across scales, from the tight coil of DNA inside a cell to the swirling arms of distant galaxies. Each structure seems to follow a script too elegant to dismiss, as if the universe itself were whispering, "This is how things unfold." Consider the consistency of physical laws. Gravity behaves the same in every corner of the sky. Electromagnetic forces weave identical dances across space and time. Even the smallest particles follow rules with perfect loyalty, never straying from their assigned roles. This reliability feels less like coincidence and more like coding, a kind of cosmic language guiding the universe with gentle precision. And yet, the patterns extend beyond laws. They appear in the world's shapes, rhythms, and relationships. Trees branch in fractal designs that mirror the structures of rivers, lightning, and neural pathways. Sound waves map themselves in curves that resemble the movements of celestial bodies. These resonances make the universe feel knitted together, as though everything is part of a single, unfolding message. Some thinkers imagine reality as a conversation between matter and meaning, with each pattern forming a sentence, each law contributing a line. If this idea is true, then existence becomes more than a collection of events. It becomes a tapestry woven from information's subtle signals encoded in the behavior of the world, waiting to be recognized. But this is not a claim, only an invitation. A quiet suggestion that the more we observe these patterns, the more intentional they begin to appear. Not controlled, not authored, but deeply coherent. The universe seems to favor order even in chaos, structure even in randomness, as if following a deeper blueprint written into its foundation. When we view the cosmos through this lens, everything takes on a new softness. Galaxies no longer look scattered. They look arranged. Forces no longer feel arbitrary. They feel chosen. Matter no longer appears mute. It carries the echoes of instructions older than time. And with that shift in perspective, a new curiosity rises. If the universe behaves like a system of information, do its rules remain fixed, or do they evolve in ways we have yet to notice? That question leads us gently toward the next mystery. Section 9.2. The rules that never break. Except when they do 500 words, the universe is often described as obedient, a place governed by laws so consistent they seem carved into the foundation of existence. Gravity pulls. Light travels at one unwavering speed. Particles follow familiar paths. Because these rules rarely change, they create a sense of stability or cosmic reliability we can trust. Yet, scattered across the vastness, there are strange moments when the universe behaves as though it hesitates, glitches, or bends its own instructions. These anomalies are subtle, but they whisper that the rules might not be as rigid as we once believed. Imagine the universe as a grand story written with careful precision. Most chapters follow predictable patterns, But occasionally a sentence appears that does not match the rest. A particle changes state unexpectedly, switching roles without warning. A star drifts in a direction gravity alone cannot justify. A region of space stretches faster than its neighbors, as if responding to a different version of the cosmic script. These exceptions are rare, but their presence lingers like soft echoes, hinting at an underlying flexibility woven into the rules themselves. Some particles behave one way when unobserved and another when watched, as though the universe acknowledges attention and adjusts accordingly. Other particles decay at different rates, depending on how they move, subtly shifting their relationship with time. Even the expansion of the cosmos once assumed steady has sped up without clear explanation. It is as if the universe occasionally updates its behavior, following instructions from a deeper layer hidden beneath, the one we can measure. These anomalies do not break the laws of nature, but they bend them in ways too consistent to ignore. They feel less like mistakes and more like reminders that the rules may be nested within larger rules layers of guidance, shaping reality with delicate complexity. When the universe departs from its expected behaviors, it is almost like watching a dancer stray briefly from choreographed steps before returning seamlessly to the performance. The deviation is small, but it reveals a deeper freedom moving beneath the surface. Every exception invites a question: who or what wrote these rules? And why would they include allowances for such unusual behavior? Some scientists describe these anomalies as windows, cracks through which deeper truths might peek. Others imagine them as signs of a richer structure where the laws we know are merely approximations, simplified reflections of something far more intricate. This perspective does not suggest chaos, but a kind of layered order, patterns built upon patterns. Reality may not be governed by a single rigid set of laws, but by a hierarchy of principles, each guiding the next. When one behaves strangely, it may be following instructions we have yet to decode. These cracks in predictability draw us toward the next mystery. If the rules occasionally bend, then perhaps there is a blueprint beneath them, something steady, ancient, and quietly shaping every expression of the universe. Asterisk, if we gather everything we've witnessed so far, the repeating shapes, the hidden rhythms, the strange consistencies and stranger exceptions, quiet idea begins to form. It suggests that beneath the world we see lies a deeper structure, a kind of blueprint woven into the foundation of reality. Not a map drawn on paper, but an architecture expressed through the behavior of matter, the flow of time, and the delicate balance between the forces that shape the cosmos. This blueprint feels ancient, patient, and impossibly precise, guiding the universe without ever revealing its full design. Imagine peeling back the layers of existence like pages in a book. At first, you encounter familiar laws: gravity, motion, light. Turn the page, and deeper patterns appear: spirals, repeating across scales, filaments stretching between galaxies, waves hiding inside particles. Turn another page, and you find rules that bend in rare moments, suggesting influences beyond our models. Each layer reveals more detail, more coherence, as though everything is connected through a shared underlying logic. This hidden structure does not announce itself. It reveals hints only through the behavior of the world. Galaxies aligning across impossible distances, matter organizing itself into patterns echoed in living organisms, time pulsing differently within particles. Even the cosmic web, sprawling across the universe like a nervous system, feels less like a random scattering of galaxies and more like a design etched into space. Long before stars were born, the idea of a blueprint brings a sense of quiet wonder. It softens the divide between chaos and order, suggesting that randomness may simply be a surface phenomenon, masking deeper intention. The universe begins to resemble a layered tapestry where each thread contributes to a pattern too large for any single observer to see. And yet, through careful attention, we glimpse pieces of the design enough to sense its presence, even if we cannot fully decode it. The blueprint may not be fixed. It might evolve, shift, or breathe, adjusting how reality expresses itself. Perhaps the anomalies we see, the strange stars, the unexpected motions, the exceptions in physical law, places where the underlying pattern peeks through, like cracks in a painting revealing earlier layers beneath. Or perhaps they are signals, guiding us to recognize that reality is more textured and dynamic than we assumed. As we contemplate this possibility, the boundary between science and philosophy grows thin. We are no longer simply observing the universe. We are interpreting it, listening for meaning within its structure. The blueprint beneath reality becomes a quiet companion to our curiosity, urging us to question, to imagine, to look deeper. And this brings us to the threshold of the final chapter. If the universe truly rests on a hidden architecture, then the next question is unavoidable. Why does that blueprint exist at all? What purpose, if any, does it serve? What story is reality trying to tell? The search for meaning begins now. Section 10.1. Are these hidden forces part of a larger story? 500 words as we draw near the end of this long journey through unseen forces and ancient patterns. A softer, deeper question begins to rise. Not what these forces are, but why they feel so coordinated. When we step back from the details, the spirals in galaxies, the rhythms of space, the strange behavior of particles, the quiet influence of observation, a wider picture begins to emerge. It is as though the universe is not merely functioning, but unfolding. Not simply existing, but telling a story too vast for any single lifetime to grasp. This is not a claim of intention or design. There is no need for that. Instead, it is a recognition of something more delicate, the sense that everything we have explored fits together with uncanny elegance. Forces guiding motion, patterns repeating from the smallest scales to the largest, light carrying messages across time, consciousness interacting with reality in ways we barely understand. These elements do not contradict one another. They complement one another, like chapters of a hidden narrative written into the fabric of existence. Imagine watching the universe from a great distance, not in space, but in understanding. You would see matter weaving into galaxies, galaxies streaming into filaments, filaments arranging themselves into a grand cosmic web. You would see particles flicker between states, choosing paths only when observed. You would see laws that rarely break, yet during rare moments, bend just enough to hint at layers beneath. All of this feels too harmonious to dismiss as random, yet too mysterious to claim as deliberate. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. The universe may not be purposeful in the way living beings are, but perhaps it is expressive. Perhaps it evolves, learning through cycles of expansion and collapse. Perhaps patterns refine themselves over unimaginable spans of time, shaping new realities from the ashes of older ones. These are possibilities, not conclusions, forged gently to those willing to peer beyond the boundaries of certainty. Late at night, when the world quiets and the mind drifts, it becomes easier to sense this larger picture. We feel small, yet somehow connected to something vast. The mysteries we've explored, gravity's strange gentleness, light's impossible loyalty, the whispers hidden in the cosmic afterglobe begin to feel like clues in a story, stretching far beyond the reach of human history. A story still unfolding, and perhaps that is the real wonder. Not that the universe hides secrets, but that it reveals them slowly, piece by piece, inviting us to follow along. Our curiosity becomes part of the narrative, a quiet act of participation in a cosmos that seems to notice when we look closely enough. If there is a larger story, then we must ask the next question: where do we fit within it? Are we mere observers drifting through its pages, or participants woven into the tale itself? That question leads us gently into the next reflection, where the focus shifts from the universe to the humans who dare to wonder about it. Asterisk, when we look out at the universe, it is easy to feel small. Stars burn with ancient fire, galaxies drift across unimaginable distances, and time itself stretches far beyond the span of our lives. Yet, as we explore the hidden forces shaping everything, another feeling slowly emerges, one that suggests we are not strangers wandering through an indifferent cosmos. Instead, we may be participants woven into its fabric, connected to its quiet rules in ways we barely notice. Think of the questions we've carried throughout this journey: why particles respond to our observation, why patterns echo across scales, why consciousness seems to move in harmony with the world rather than apart from it. These mysteries invite us to wonder whether humanity plays a role deeper than simple spectatorship. We are the universe looking back at itself, aware of its own behavior through the lens of living eyes. This is not to say we are central or chosen. The cosmos is not arranged around us, and its forces do not bend to our desires. But the mere fact that we can reflect, imagine, question, and seek meaning suggests that consciousness is not an accident sitting awkwardly inside a mechanical universe. Instead, it may be an emergent expression of the same quiet principles that shape galaxies and stars. Awareness may be as natural as motion, as integral as gravity, as mysterious as dark energy. Humans ponder, create, dream, and explore not because these traits separate us from the universe, but because they bind us to it. Our curiosity mirrors the cosmos's tendency toward complexity. Our creativity echoes the universe's drive to form patterns. Even memory, the fragile archive of our inner lives, resembles the traces left behind in the cosmic background, storing stories from earlier moments. When we ask where we belong, the answer may be simpler than we expect. We belong inside the unfolding of the universe, not outside it. Our awareness, limited though it is, participates in the larger rhythm. Every question we ask becomes a continuation of the cosmic search for understanding. Every discovery we make becomes another page in a story that began long before us. And just as galaxies are held together by unseen forces, so too are we held by quiet influences, connections, inspirations that feel as mysterious as the tides of space. We are shaped by forces we cannot touch, guided by intuitions we cannot fully explain, woven together by experiences that bind us to one another and to the world around us. As we embrace this perspective, something shifts. Humanity no longer appears as a brief interruption in cosmic history, but as one expression of the universe's deeper logic. Our existence becomes meaningful not because we dominate the cosmos, but because we reflect it. In our awareness, the universe finds a way to witness its own beauty, its own mystery, its own quiet unfolding. And so the final question approaches naturally. After all we've explored, what remains unknown? What truths still lie hidden, waiting for curious minds to uncover them? Asterisk, after wandering through hidden forces, cosmic echoes, ancient patterns, and the strange partnership between mind and matter, one truth becomes clearer than any other. The universe is still wrapped in mystery. Even with all our discoveries, all our measurements, all our questions whispered into the dark, the vast majority of existence remains beyond our reach. And somehow, that unknowing feels less like a failure and more like an invitation, a gentle reminder that wonder is not meant to end, but to deepen. We understand only fragments of the forces shaping reality. Gravity guides us, yet its essence slips through our fingers. Light carries stories across billions of years, yet its true nature remains undecided. Dark energy pushes the cosmos apart with soft insistence, yet we do not know what it is or why it grows stronger. Even the particles forming our bodies behave like riddles, flickering between loyalty and unpredictability. At every scale, certainty dissolves into something softer, quieter, and far more mysterious. But perhaps the most profound unknown lies not in distant galaxies or hidden dimensions, but in the relationship between consciousness and reality. We still do not know why awareness exists, how it arises, or what role it plays in the universe's unfolding. It moves through our lives like a silent presence shaping choices, guiding intuition, creating meaning, yet it remains just beyond explanation. In that sense, consciousness is a reflection of the cosmos itself, familiar, yet endlessly deep. Instead of fearing the unknown, we might learn to welcome it. The mysteries we cannot solve are the very ones that keep us reaching, imagining, expanding. They give us a reason to look up at the night sky and wonder how much more lies beyond the faint glow of distant stars. They remind us that every answer we uncover is only the beginning of a new question. Curiosity becomes a form of navigation, guiding us through darkness with the soft glow of possibility. It may be that some secrets are meant to unfold slowly, across generations, as humanity grows into new ways of seeing. Or perhaps some truths are so vast they can only be understood through experience, through the gentle interplay between exploration and awe. In either case, the unknown is not a void. It is a landscape one that stretches ahead with endless depth, urging us to continue the search. And so, we end where all great journeys begin, at the edge of the mysterious, standing beneath a sky carved with ancient starlight. We sense the quiet forces shaping everything, the ones we've explored, the ones we've only glimpsed, and the countless ones still hidden. We may never know the full story, but we are part of it. Each thought, each question, each moment of wonder threads us into the tapestry of the cosmos. The universe remains vast, silent, and filled with unanswered questions. But in that silence, something gentle waits an invitation to keep looking, keep listening, and keep dreaming of the secrets still beyond the horizon.